Well, everybody. Welcome to this very special live edition of Unholy Ground. I'm Sam Osterhout, and I'm joined, as always, by the incredible Andra Watkins. Andra, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Sam? You've been on vacation, so you're probably feeling rejuvenated.
Yeah. Vacation has I am. It's great. But you also need like a minute after vacation, to sort of get back in the sync and all of that. And also like, changing your routine gets tiring, and I don't know. I'm a creature of habit, I guess. I see Adriana Torosian is in the chat. Kristen Howard, hey, Peter joined. This is our first ever, right? We used to do this live back in the day.
Did we? I know Lisa and I did it live when we were doing it, but did you and I do it live?
I think
maybe we did once or twice. I don't remember.
I think we did, and I think we started taping and coming Sunday. But today, everyone, we are live, and so we're reading the chat. We are coming through. I see the hearts coming through. You guys are the best. This is one of my favorite audiences of all the shows that we do on Lincoln Square. I want you to take advantage of this. Like, let's chat. I'm looking at you'll see my eyes not looking at Andra today a lot because I'll be looking at the chat, reading your comments and questions. If you're joining on YouTube, I'll read every super chat that comes in. And if you have questions, really ask them and we'll do it. But and this is Telfer Works. Good morning from West Tennessee. Good morning to you. Happy Sunday, everyone. We will good day from Northern Utah. Bastions of white Christian nationalism, Utah and Tennessee, and
Northwest
from Arkansas. Yeah. We're all the hits today. Hi, everybody. Also wanted to give a shout out to Jen, who I met over the weekend, who's a big fan of the show. Jen from Brooklyn. Thanks for watching. They watch every Monday morning. So tomorrow, shout out to Jen. Today we got to talk about something that I think that's come up a lot on this show. A few threads that you've written about this week that are connecting in a way that is affecting a particular demographic, a particular set of voters. And if y'all watch the show, I'm probably talking about women. We're going to talk today a little bit about no-fault divorce. I think we need to talk about the SAVE Act, or Slave Act, as Andra so eloquently calls it, and a couple of other things. So I just want to set the table here, because you've been saying since 2024, right, for years now, that white Christian nationalists don't want to end no-fault divorce, right? They want to end divorce.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the distinction, and how is this coming up?
White Christian nationalist churches often have contracts of conduct or standards of conduct that they require their members to sign and adhere to, and they periodically call people before them to give an accounting of how well they're doing with these contracts. And so part of any contract of conduct or standard of conduct with one of these churches would be that you cannot end your marriage until the church adjudicates, or some committee within the church adjudicates whether or not you can end a marriage. So very often in these churches, what ends up happening is the woman wants to end her marriage because her husband has been unfaithful, he's committed adultery, or he's been abusive, to their children, been unpredictable in some way, in an abusive fashion. And so she goes before the church council or whoever it is and says, my husband's committed adultery, I've caught him in adultery, or he's been abusive to me. And the church council, rather than dealing with him, will force him to apologize to her or tell him he has to apologize to her in front of them. And then they'll tell her he's apologized, he's repented, he said he won't do it again. And so we can't, in good faith, grant you a divorce from him because he's apologized, he's asked for your forgiveness. And so you're required by God to forgive him. And if you bring this up again, then you're committing the same sin he did. So in reality, when they talk about no-fault divorce, I say they're talking about all divorce, because in these instances of infidelity or abuse, it's very rare for a white Christian nationalist church to actually bless a woman getting a divorce in those situations. They will do everything they can to try to guilt and coerce the woman to stay in that relationship. So when I say they're saying no fault divorce, but they mean all divorce, that's why I'm saying that, because of how they treat it in their churches.
It's so, in other words, it is, look, there are some stats here. 95% of all divorces in Texas are through no fault. Right. And you have to think about if you limit that, what actually happens. And Texas right now, repeal of no fault divorce is the party platform of the Republican Party.
Yes.
70% of divorces in Texas are filed by women. And so when you put that scrutiny on a woman to make a case, right, she has to make the case and defend the case that she ought to be divorced. And then a panel, likely of men, likely of Christian men, likely of white Christian nationalist men. This is the theme, gang. Everyone who's watching the show knows this refrain. They get to decide whether the woman gets the divorce. And that's 70%. Well, again, 70% of Texas divorces are filed by the women.
And when you talk about, I've been through a divorce, you've been through a divorce. So a no-fault divorce is the simplest way to get divorced. It doesn't require you to have evidence that someone has been unfaithful or been abusive, which gathering that kind of evidence can cost a lot more money and take a lot more time. So no-fault divorce was a way to say, we're just going to let one party say, we don't want to be married anymore. There have been several states, South Carolina was one of them, South Dakota is another, that have introduced legislation that hasn't passed yet to say that if both parties don't agree to a no-fault divorce, they can't get a no-fault divorce. And again, that would weaken a woman's ability to leave an abusive or unfaithful husband, because he would have to agree to the divorce.
Yeah.
For it to be no fault. So there are multiple ways that red states are trying to hack away at a woman's right to leave a marriage without naming fault.
So, look, I would venture a guess that, a lot of you folks out in the audience right now have been divorced, right? It is an experience that many of us have gone through. It's tough enough as it is, even in a marriage where there's no love or there's abuse or anything. It's a very difficult contract to break. The red states, Texas, Oklahoma, as you mentioned, all these states are coming at it really hard at this point. And I think that one thing we flagged as well is that in Project 2025, they defined family as one man married to one unrelated woman with as many children as God gives them, right? And this year, you all remember Project 2025. Well, they continued to put material out. And so the Heritage Foundation followed it this year with Saving America by Saving the Family, which we've talked about a lot on this show. And you say that, page 47 goes after divorce directly. The no fault system has in effect turned into a no reason needed system. Adultery, abandonment, and cruelty are no longer considered aggravating factors. And that's the quote. And it's written to sort of sound like it's protecting wronged spouses, right?
Right.
But that's not the case.
No, I mean, J.D. Vance is the one who said, I think that people think they can change spouses like they change their underwear.
Right.
So they have been coming after a woman's ability. And let's be clear about this. If a man wants a divorce in a white Christian nationalist country, a man's going to get a divorce. It's going to be women who will not be able to leave abusive or adulterous marriages or marriages where they've been abandoned by their husbands. It won't be men who will be put in that position. It will be women. So, they've been hacking away at this. I was surprised to learn that the first no-fault divorce repeal in Texas was actually proposed in 2017.
Wow.
So the 2016 election was really a watershed for some of these red states to start proposing these things. But back then, they were so absurd and so unthinkable that anybody would go along with this that we didn't even talk about it.
Look, the numbers are kind of incredible. I want to just add a couple of comments here. Telfer Works, my friend is currently getting a divorce in Houston, and her husband's megachurch has become involved. They're trying to discredit her professionally. And she says it's bordering on libelous. And imagine wanting to get out of a marriage. You feel threatened. You feel, like when you got to get out, you got to get out. But then you have to justify it not only to your spouse, but to their megachurch, to their pastor. You have to go. It is disgusting.
That borders on, I covered, and I can't remember when it was. It might have been last Friday, or it might have been Monday. This all runs together anymore. I do write a lot. I'm very prolific. But the Atlantic had an article by a far right writer who was writing about how the Bible, of course, should be taught in schools, and gave this whole justification for that. And then on the heels of researching that article, I found this article in the Federalist, which is very much a far-right publication, where they were saying, if the government won't go along with Christian laws, then the church needs to make them.
Yeah.
And so that example that this person's friend from Texas, from Houston, that's an example of that, of this mentality that these churches have put forward, that if the secular laws won't go along with what we demand, then we will get involved as a church and try to force the laws and the people involved to go along with our opinions and our religious takes on these laws. So I've covered a couple of different ways that this has come somewhat in the mainstream. I know the Atlantic has been platforming more people like that, but I've been a subscriber there for a long time, and I was just so sad to see that they would put up an article that, of course, the Bible should be taught in schools as the headline,
Like, it's crazy. And so here's the other thing, then the slippery slope that we talk about a lot. And I want to get to a couple of stats in a second. Also, if you're just tuning in, this is Unholy Ground with Andra Watkins and me, Sam Osterhout. I'm going to read every super chat. If you're watching from YouTube, super chats are super. They're super chats.
That's the only part of the chat I can see. So.
Oh, is that right? You can only see the super chats?
I can only see the super chat on my.
Well, so anyway, we'll read all of them. I haven't seen any super chats yet, but I'm going to get to a lot of questions. I see Patrick says, "Hey, Patrick, how you doing? People don't want government controlling them, but they let megachurches do it instead." Here's the problem. There's a slippery slope. The megachurches are becoming the government.
Yes.
Right. And all these Joel Webbin videos that we show, all of these, what's his name? Hegseth's guy.
Doug Wilson.
Oh, God. It's like a cheese grater on my face every time I hear that word. But Doug Wilson, these people are in there. You start in the church, you create a template for how to control people's lives in that context, and then you transition it into positions of real power in our governance. And I want to just quickly go back to No Fault in Texas and elsewhere. There's a study by Stephen and Wolfers, right? And it tracked every state that adopted what they called unilateral divorce or no-fault divorce between 1964 and 1996. And in those states, domestic violence fell by about 30%, right? Female suicide fell anywhere between 8 and 16%, and approaching, it was really approaching 20% after a couple of decades. Women murdered by their partners fell by about 10%. And obviously there was not much of a change for men, except I would argue there was a huge change for men, that they were killing their partners 10% less, right? That they were committing 30% less domestic violence. So I think that this kind of leads to my next question, which is, I see this and I think, okay, well, no-fault divorce actually solved a load of problems, like a real, many different social problems. What is the problem that they are trying to solve by repealing unilateral divorce?
Well, they're trying to solve the problem of feminism, Sam, and women having rights. That's a problem for them. That's what they're trying to solve. They really do. I've said this before, but I haven't said it here in a while. Some people say they want to take us back to pre-Civil War or Victorian times. No, they are trying to create a new feudalism where women and children are owned by men. They are considered to be the property of men. And that was a process called coverture that originated in France and Norman England. The Normans brought it to England. And so it was very popular, like in the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, 1500s. But because we copied English common law in the United States to base our Constitution on that and how our laws work, a lot of those coverture-based principles ended up being put into our system of government. And so it was 1870 something before women had the right to own property in most states in the Union. It was 1972 under Ruth Bader Ginsburg fighting for this, that women could have bank accounts in their own name and credit in their own name and things like that. So we have only very recently, in some cases, a woman couldn't have a passport in her own name until 1920 if she was married in the United States. So it's very recently that we had started to hack away at some of these coverture-driven laws that were brought over from England, the UK, and built into our Constitution. And so there very much is this feeling among these white Christian men that women and children, things were so much better when women and children were just our property and were considered to be our property. And they couldn't own anything. Whatever they owned was ours as the men to do whatever we want. I mean, I read a lot of bodice ripper, smutty romance novels, and I talk about that here all the time. And there's a whole genre of this, like Regency romance. If you've watched Bridgerton, that's what you're watching. And that's a big driver of the plot points and the conflict in these novels, is this notion that women can't own anything and always have to be overseen by some dude. So it's very recent that women have had some of the rights that we have. Many of the rights that we have as women have come into play in my lifetime. And so younger women who go to these Turning Point USA conferences and whatever and hear, oh, wouldn't it be so great if I were just a trad wife and couldn't vote and just stayed home and didn't have a career, you know, they haven't known a world where they didn't have a choice not to do those things, not to have a career, not to choose not to marry, to have their own bank accounts, to buy their own homes and buy their own assets and investments and whatever. So it's really important. And I've tried to encourage women who follow me who remember. I mean, one of my readers even wrote about how her mother couldn't buy an Electrolux vacuum cleaner in 1972 from a door-to-door salesman without her husband signing off on it. So, I wish more women would tell those stories about what it was like pre some of these laws, because I don't remember.
My mother always talks about she wanted to be a dentist, and she worked as a dental assistant or hygienist, in college, I think, and she had great grades. She had a great relationship with the dentist. She was really great. And then she asked, she had to get permission from her father and a recommendation from the dentist to go to dental school, and he wouldn't give it to her.
Her father or the dentist?
Either. Her father maybe, but the dentist would not. He was like, no, women aren't dentists. You'll be a hygienist. You'll be a great one. Didn't work out. My mom wasn't having it, but yeah. And look, I think that this also underlies the fact that, every time we say something like women earn the right to something, something, something only recently, my skin crawls, because women shouldn't have to earn their rights.
I hope I didn't say that. I've been trying not to.
But
we fought for these rights.
We fought for these rights. Right. And also, I think that this movement that we all and everyone in this chat ought to be working towards is inherent rights.
Right.
Right. You shouldn't be able to just remove somebody's ability to do something that is an ultimate function of their freedom and liberty. I want to get to a couple. I see Sean Bertolo in the chat. I see Jessica Rage.
Hi, Jessica.
Jessica's great. Jessica says they're solving the problem of women being almost full citizens. And right. That's right. That is the problem. Amy Gabrielle says the number one cause of death for pregnant women is partner violence, which is, I haven't seen the stats, but it doesn't sound wrong, and it is jarring. Who else we got? Yeah, Tracy says her mom wanted to be a surgeon, dropped out of high school, worked her way up to court administrator after getting her GED. These are stories that are still with us and that still have an imprint on people like us and you and me. And also, believe it or not, like my teen-age daughters are sort of living with a legacy because we operate under certain assumptions as we live our lives. Oh, Sharon, I am a dentist. Yay. This is in 78, I had to go to 7 banks before one would give me a government guaranteed student loan. They said they thought I was a little girl with a big dream. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, I lived in the South of the United States for most of my life, and this stuff still happened to women, still happens today at banks and lending institutions, and even worse to Black women. How difficult it is for Black and brown women to get bank accounts in parts of the rural South, even today, even though we have these laws that they're supposed to follow.
Yeah, well, so I want to talk about this a little bit, because there's a kind of a darker part that you wrote, as if any of this gets darker, but that you wrote about this week, that white Christian nationalists have, for a long time, elevated and sort of enriched specific women to convince other women to give up their rights, folks like Allie Beth Stuckey, Emma Waters, Hannah Nealman.
That's Ballerina Farm.
And the tactic that you describe is that they never say the word divorce. They post about submission, they post about motherhood, about leaving the workforce, and they can't imagine anything their husband could do that would make them leave, right? Who are these people, and what is happening? There was an article in the New York Times last week called it was about a book that was published in like 98, 99, something like that, and it was about wives who just give up, who are like, you're the man, do the thing. And it was a wildly popular book, but it was published under the guise of female empowerment, which is so absurd. How do these women live with themselves?
They laugh all the way to the bank, Sam. They think because they have been anointed by men to have these opinions, and they're paid very well. Allie Beth Stuckey makes $30,000 to $50,000 per appearance.
Oh my God!
To stand up in front of women at Turning Point USA while she pays someone else to watch her 3 children. And I'm not condemning that. But when she sits and tells these women for $30,000 to $50,000 a pop, you shouldn't be working outside the home. You shouldn't be using contraception. You should be having babies, even if you're not ready to have babies. You should submit to your husband. You should not want a career. $30,000 to $50,000 per appearance to sit, and that's not counting book deals. That's not counting that, I've read that influencers of her caliber can make 6 figures for doing some sort of sponsored post on social media. These women, Candace Owens makes $50,000 to $100,000 per appearance. And that's nothing. It's nothing to these billionaires that finance all of this. It's nothing to them. So they pay these women very well to these women. It's nothing to the billionaires to convince other women to give up their autonomy. And these women think, because I'm doing their bidding, I'm going to keep the place I have. And some women like Phyllis Schlafly Phyllis Schlafly died and in a high place, but women like Anita Bryant did not. Right. A lot of these women who would do that in the 70s and 80s were cast aside as soon as they didn't have any more use for the men. And so some of these women may maintain their usefulness and some of them may not. But right now they're all getting very, very rich to do everything they tell all the people who are listening to them not to do. It's calling them hypocrites is a waste because they know they're hypocrites and they don't care. They just laugh all the way to the bank. But we don't talk nearly enough about how much money. I mean, if I ever got in front of one of those women, I would spend the whole time asking Allie Beth Stuckey where her children were right now. Who's watching her children? How much is she paying her children, the woman or women or people who are watching her children, so that she can make $50,000 to stand here and tell me not to do that? How much, where are they? Why is she here doing this when she's telling all the rest of us to be with children? I would just, and I would get kicked out of the event. So I would be manhandled out because
you would walk in the door and they would say,
it makes me so angry that these women do this. But it is something that white Christian nationalism has always done. They know they have to get women to convince women to sell themselves out. And so they pay these women very well and give them, celebrity status and cred and all of this stuff that it's really in that world the only way you can get it as a woman. So they give them that.
It is. And Jessica says, they mistake proximity to power as power. And I think
Right.
that there is something to that. But I also do believe that, I have 3 sisters. My mother, she didn't tell me this, but she told all of them, have money and have secret money. You need to have secret money, right? I love your husband. He's wonderful. Or I love your boyfriend, or I love your partner, whoever it is. But keep a stash of secret money because you never know. Right. And so in this case, the, Allie Beth Stuckey's are keeping their money. Right. And in some ways that is power. Right. It's not just power adjacent. It is a certain kind of autonomy that they can experience because they do have a lot of money and a lot of access to wealth. They could be independent if they wanted to be.
It's power until you connect all the dots with what NSPM7 wants to do vis-a-vis people's stuff. If they can say you violated some aspect of this and we're shutting off your bank accounts and we're shutting off your access to your investment accounts and whatever, I mean, that's another way that they can control people like Allie Beth Stuckey for as long as they need her. And fascist governments always get to that point at some point. They always do.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit. Do you have a little more time?
I do.
Oh, wonderful.
I do.
I hope y'all I keep saying y'all because I'm on
because of me.
Because I'm with Andra Watkins. I hope everyone in the audience has a little more time. Don't forget to hit that heart button. Bring everyone to the conversation. If you're just joining us, of course, this is Unholy Ground. We've been talking about the campaign of white Christian nationalists to end no-fault divorce and leave women with fewer and fewer and fewer options, not just in their marriages, but in all things. And we have to talk at least a little bit about the right to cast a ballot. So I want to kind of set this up, take just a second to set it up, because the mechanics I think here really matter. The SAVE Act, House Bill 22, requires documentary proof of citizenship handed over in person before you can register to vote, right? So all of that ends mail and online registration for most of us. It passed in the House. It needs 60 votes in the Senate, which is why Trump is railing about the filibuster and all this kind of thing that he probably just learned about. The Republicans, obviously, they hold 53 votes. Majority Leader Thune has said, there's just not enough votes, but they have recently attached the SAVE Act to a spending bill and moved it through reconciliation, which needs a simple majority and skips the filibuster entirely. So I just want to, for everyone out there, you might be probably not surprised to learn that Andra has been calling this for a very long time, this exact strategy. So
we've talked about it here a bunch.
And we've talked about it here a bunch. This is Andra's crystal ball coming to pass. So why is this the bill they're willing to sort of burn every rule on?
And hopefully the Senate parliamentarian won't allow this tactic. She didn't last time they tried it because they've tried this already. So hopefully she will say that they can't attach it to this bill either. And that they'll have to overturn the filibuster to pass it. I believe that Republicans are so filthy dirty in the Senate that they will happily, when push comes to shove in October or whatever, bow to dear leader and give him what he wants.
Wow.
So, I just firmly believe this bill, women, they want to overturn the 19th Amendment, but this is a really handy way to negate much of the 19th Amendment by making women, and it's largely going to be women who've taken their husband's name when they married and changed their names when they married, have to get extra paperwork to prove they are who they say they are. I have my maiden name. So my name on my birth certificate matches my name on my voter ID card and my driver's license and my passport and all of my other stuff. But for a lot of women, that's not the case. When you take your birth certificate, which is your proof that you were born in the United States, it's going to have a different name if you've taken your husband's name. And so they're requiring people, and it's going to largely be women, over, I think, almost 80% of American women take their husband's name when they marry.
69 million American women have taken their husband's last name. The Brennan Center found 34% of women can't even put their hands on proof of citizenship in the name they use today. So a woman goes to register and the government asks her, right, to prove that she's the person on her own birth certificate. And the reason she can't is because she got married. This is a tax, right? You call it a poll tax. A certified birth certificate by mail is...
Mine was $90.
Yeah, $50 to $100, right? It takes, and it's not like you just order it and it shows up the next day, right? It can take months.
Mine took 90 days.
90 days.
90
Marriage
days.
certificates come from the county where you were married. Divorce decrees and name change orders each have their own fee. These are poll taxes.
Right. And so what there's still time. According to the State Department website, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get a passport.
Yeah.
And I've been advising people to just get the passport card. If you don't have a passport, just get the passport card. You have to do the same stuff to get the passport card. You can't fly out of the country with a passport card, but you can go to Canada and Mexico by land or sea with a passport card. And it's only $30 plus a $35 processing fee if you've never applied before to get a passport card. So it's much cheaper if you already have the documents. You have to produce a birth certificate and another form of government issued ID to get a passport right now. They don't require, I don't think I had to produce a marriage certificate or any of that stuff.
Wow.
So, they still don't require, because what you have to do if you go the birth certificate route and your name doesn't match is you're going to have to get a copy of your marriage certificate. And if you're divorced, a divorce decree or certificate to show that the person you are today is the person on that birth certificate and show. And so in the aggregate, getting all of those documents could be more expensive than just getting a passport card. So I've been advising women, if you've still got time, if you do it now, to get one of those before the midterms, and then you have it. And then if they don't pass the Slave Act, then you still have this form of ID that at some point they're going to pull out and say you need for some other reason.
Yeah, for sure. And it having a new form of ID doesn't hurt, right? If you can afford it, do it. Jessica Rage, you'll need these things sooner or later. Exactly. We are moving towards the Soviet show your papers model, and it'll happen sooner rather than later. And they're making no secret about that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the model. You need to show your papers first to vote, and then to do whatever else.
In a lot of states too, I do want to give a plug to Vote Riders, because in a lot of states where people don't have the money for documents to vote, some states have already passed forms of this bill. So if you're in one of those states, you can go to Vote Riders and say, I can't afford the documents I need. I don't even know what I need. Help me figure it out. And they'll do that. And they'll put money toward the cost of that for you.
It's amazing. You say in voteriders.org, by the way, and they're helping folks in Florida, Mississippi, Utah, South Dakota, Kansas, Indiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, Wyoming, Arizona, Ohio, and New Hampshire.
Wow, New Hampshire's is on hold.
Oh, it is?
A judge finally kicked it to the curb the day I wrote that.
Oh, amazing.
So New Hampshire's, you don't have to do that.
Okay.
But those other states have some form of it sitting out there. So.
Tracy Farmer, yes. Votewriters.org. Okay. Everyone, this was really, really fun. We got to do this more often. I love talking to everyone. I love talking to y'all. Somebody said all y'all means everyone, and y'all means a few of you.
Well, all y'all is a group of people.
Yeah,
I
right.
can say that one as much as y'all,
All
because
y'all,
can just be everybody, but sometimes
yeah, I agree. Look, everyone, if you liked this show, if you are a fan of this show, make sure you share it out. We will post on both of our Substacks for such time as this for Andra and Lincoln Square for me. And go to the post, make comments, add your comments there. I know that a lot of our audience uses our comments as resources. So this is where we build community, and the community that will fight this bullshit. We are all in this absolutely together. So share this thing out, and let's make something. Let's make something really good.
Yeah, it was great to be here today. Glad to see everybody.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.